Hello, my name is Victor. I'm a data scientist, and I am an instructor at datainterview.com. And this is a mock interview. Maybe you can introduce yourself briefly, Lokesh?
Yes, my name is Lokesh. I am preparing for the upcoming interviews and using datainterview.com for practice interviews.
Okay. So just to cover here very quickly, we're going to go through a few different SQL questions, and then we're going to get into a product case, depending upon time. So let's go ahead and start. So let me go ahead and copy and paste this right in. So this is the table, and this is the first question. I'll copy and paste it in. So consider a table that contains all the deliveries on Uber Eats with the following schema. Table name is delivery orders. And delivery ID, order, place, time, predicted time of delivery, et cetera, et cetera. These are the different columns. And so the first question is, a delivery is flagged as extremely late if its actual delivery is 20 minutes after its predicted time. What is the percentage of orders that were extremely late grouped by month?
Got it. So I will say select from this table. We have delivery orders as a table. And then we have another table, order value, which is the sales of that order, right? Delivery value and sales. So I don't think we need to go into that because we are just concerned about time. Now there's delivery ID, order, place, time, predicted, and actual. So I'll just say difference between these two will give me the time. I'll calculate the difference between predicted actual delivery timestamp. This. And I'll convert that into minutes. I'm not sure if this gives me difference in seconds. Assuming that if it gives me difference in seconds, I will say if it is greater than, if this is greater than 60 star 20, 20 minutes. So this will give me all deliveries which are greater than 20. So
Okay.
delivery flags delivery is greater than 20 per time. What percent of orders were extremely late, right? So I will say count of delivery ID. And then since I want percent, I'll multiply this by 100.0 and then divide by select count of all delivery IDs. From delivery orders. As percent late. So this should give me, and then we are doing it by month, right? So select month from order place time as month grouped by month. So this should give me percent of deliveries that are extremely late grouped by month.
All right. That looks good. I see in the denominator you're calculating the total number of deliveries with
Actually,
an
I
F
think,
statement.
yeah, I think
Right.
this also I need to do it by month because this will calculate all the deliveries.
Mm-hmm.
So what I can do here is, actually, let's change it a little bit. What I'll do is I'll first have a query for just the with late delivery as this table. And let's not calculate the difference here. I just calculate the count.
Mm-hmm.
And then I will actually use this subtable in my actual query then to get select this from order delivery, join late delivery. In this case, I won't filter by timestamp, group by month, and then late delivery, count of late delivery on month. Let's say the key here becomes month. And then I have delivery, late delivery dot so late delivery dot late will give me all the late deliveries for the month.
Mm-hmm.
And then I divide it by the count of delivery IDs, delivery orders dot delivery ID. As late percent. No need of their clause.
Question for you. Late delivery dot late. I don't see that in an, so this right here.
Yeah, so this is essentially like so you don't see it in my late delivery table?
What I'm saying is late delivery dot month delivery, I guess. I'm under the impression that this should probably be in part of the group by statement. Late delivery dot late.
Yeah, so this is coming from my subquery late delivery, and I have group by month in that. So my late delivery table I created as every month and how many deliveries were late for that month. So for example, for January, I have 5 deliveries that are late. So the late delivery table will have January, comma 5, right? And then I join it with the order delivery on month. Maybe I can have this as a one more sub table which calculates all the deliveries for the month and then join it. So, and join on month. So essentially what I'm saying is just have one more all deliveries, and
Right.
that's group by month, and then remove the timestamp.
Right.
Group by month, and then I join this and all deliveries. All delivery, join delivery on month. So late delivery, and this becomes all delivery dot, this won't be late, then it will be count of delivery as all delivery, and then I can just divide it by all delivery. not a count, but this will be a number then.
Okay. All right. I think this now looks good. Do you need this group by?
No, not this group, but this was only for the
Right.
case where I don't have the
Right.
subquery.
So to summarize here, you're creating one table for the late deliveries. You're counting up the late deliveries. Then you're counting up all the deliveries. Then you're just joining on the month and dividing the two.
Yes.
Okay. This looks good. Okay. Let's go to the next question. So Q2 here. Looking at Uber Eats drivers completing their first ever order, what % of drivers' first ever orders have a rating of 0? So if we go back up to the table here, here's the two tables. There's the delivery orders, and then there's the table delivery ID. There's a table order value, and there's the table delivery orders. So, right.
So again, in this case, I don't think I'll need the order value. I'm just looking at drivers who completed their first order. What % of drivers' first order have a rating of 0?
Yep.
Okay, I can have a similar structure, right? In this case also, first I'll create with first order select from getting data from delivery orders, and then it's completed, right? So is there a completing the first ever order, right? So how do I identify if they're completed? Maybe I have actual delivery timestamp is not null, may mean that they have completed their first delivery.
Right.
So
I'll mention here that every order for every single driver that any driver has ever given is in that delivery underscore orders table, right?
So I'm assuming like every order is complete, like there's no incomplete orders.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. So
good question.
And there is a delivery rating. So delivery. Right. So I'll just extract the first order then, right? So in this case, I will say delivery ID from delivery orders, and then I'll say rank of so I'm just getting the first delivery.
Right.
Partition by order place timestamp, or it could be delivery timestamp also.
Can I ask you why you're partitioning by the order underscore place underscore time?
So it should be actually partitioned by and then order by. So for each driver, I want to get their first order. So this will give me the rank, and then I can later on filter by the first order. So I want driver ID and I'm interested in the delivery ID because, yeah, I already have delivery ID. And then maybe get the driver ID.
Right.
So this subtable will give me driver ID, delivery ID. So the delivery ID second.
It'll be out there. Okay.
Now with this table, I want to get the what percent of drivers hours open on driver, and then I'll just get the rating as well. Let's say, all right, rating will be useful. Delivery rating.
Okay.
Now I can calculate the percent from first order. Where my delivery rank equals to 1. So this will give me all the first order, and I can calculate the percent here as count of so I will say sum of case when delivery rating equals to 0, then 1. So this will give me all the 0 rating divided by count of what percent of drivers first rating. So
First ever orders have a rating of 0.
So what I'm trying to do here is like sum of where delivery rating is 0, then the first one is like count all the deliveries where rating is 0, and then I count all deliveries, which is like the total deliveries that happened, and then I filter by delivery order 1, which means it will only look at the first delivery of all drivers.
Okay. This is looking almost what we want. Okay. All right. Right. Okay. So this looks good. Okay. Now let's do the last question. So I'll copy and paste this one in. Q3. In the year 2021, grouped by month, what percent of our Uber Eats restaurant base fulfilled more than $100 in monthly sales? So in the year 2021, for every single month in the year 2021, what percent of our Uber Eats restaurant base fulfilled more than $100 in monthly sales?
So I'll get the first. I'll get the sales. I have to join delivery orders. Order value. I can join based on delivery ID. Now we are looking at only 2021, right? So
only 2021.
Yeah. So first date, last date of next year. So this will give me date and then fulfill more than 100 orders, right? So what percent of Uber Eats restaurants, right? So I'm looking at restaurants.
Mhm.
We have restaurant ID. So I'll say in restaurant ID,
The
comma,
Uber Eats restaurant base, right?
sum of, and I'll do sales as 2021 total sales. And group by only friends. I may not need the subquery here.
Right. And as a reminder, I'll add here for you table.
Yeah.
So let's make this a little bit better for you. There you go. So this is what the actual table looks like for order value.
So the question again is in 2021 group by month, right? So group by month.
Right.
So I just get the month also. Every month, what percent of fulfill more than so month of, let's say, order first time as order month, group by restaurant ID and order month. So this is giving me restaurant and month. What is the total sale for 2022? Now, as a next step, I can just do calculate the percent. Sum of case when
Right. So this first table is just giving you the restaurant ID, the month, and the total sales.
Yeah, so I'm not going to filter here because I need all the by restaurant month their total sale, right? So what I can do now, I can calculate the percent case where 2021 sale is greater than 100, then 1, else
Yep.
0, and star divide by count of restaurant ID as percent sale 100. Now we need this group. We need this calculation by month, order month, from sales, group by order month. So sum of this under count of restaurant ID, all the restaurant ID person sales from sales table. Yeah, that should do.
Okay. Do you want to explain first this first CTE?
Yeah, so this one is essentially giving me joining the order and the sales table to give like for each restaurant for a month or each month, what is their total sale in 2021. So restaurant 1 will have 12 entries, restaurant 2 will have 12 entries. And then in the next one, for each of the month, I'm calculating when the sale is, actually I might have to do, so in a group, what percent of Uber Eats restaurants? What percent of Uber Eats restaurants fulfill more than 100 hours? Yeah, so In the second case, I'm checking when for that month, for each month, whenever the sale is greater than 100, I have 1, divide by count of restaurant ID. So for January, I will get, let's say, out of 10, 2 restaurants had greater than 100. So this will give me 2, and then count of restaurant will give me like 5 restaurants or 10 restaurants for that month.
Yep. Okay. This is looking good. I will say one slight little syntax error here is that in the CTE, you probably want to group by the variable name order month won't exist. So you probably want to group by
just the whole thing.
Exactly. There we go. Okay. All right. This is looking good. Let's move on to the next question here. So the next question is going to be more of a case study question. And I'll read it to you. It's a little bit long, but I think we can work through it together. So the question goes like this. Drivers are a core part of Uber platform. Having an adequate supply of drivers is critical to maintain market balance and service to riders. In order to be approved to drive for Uber, there are background checks, a vehicle check, identity verification, etc. Only after verification are drivers allowed to drive for Uber. However, there is a substantial fraction of Uber driver applicants that apply but never actually complete a ride. There's a massive loss of opportunity here. How would you go about investigating, quantifying, and solving this problem?
Got it. Okay. So let me think through this for a few seconds.
Feel free to write down notes and...
Yeah. So there are a substantial fraction of driver applicants that apply but never actually complete a ride. So when you say they apply, like did they went through the whole process of background check, vehicle check, identity verification, or just they created the application and then never followed up?
Right. So the clarifying question is whether or not they completed the full, got through every single one of the steps. Let's say that, you know, some portion of drivers, you know, start the process, but they never actually complete a ride. And some of them start the process and complete the process, but never actually complete a ride.
So some drop in the process, and then some complete the process, but never do the ride, right? Right. Yeah. Okay. Vehicle check. I'm just writing all the steps. Identity verification, etc. So there might be more steps. Only after verifying they're allowed to drive, and there is a substantial fraction of drivers applicants that never actually completed. There is a massive loss of opportunity. How would you go about investigating, quantifying, and solving? Okay, yeah, I mean that's a very important problem to solve because Uber is a three-sided platform. There's Uber, there are drivers, and there are passengers, right? So we want to have, ideally, the Uber would want to have a healthy balance of riders and drivers to make sure riders get the drive on time. There's not a long wait time, and drivers are a key component of making sure this market functions correctly. Now, right. I'm assuming that it takes it's a lot of effort to go through this initial check of background verification, vehicle check, identity verification. Only after this the step the Uber can drive, right? Uber, the person can drive. Now, to investigate this, the way I will start is actually I will look at the data to see in the funnel where the drop-off is happening. So I can create a funnel of all the steps, and I think these are some of them are linear steps and some can happen in the background. And I can quantify how from the top of the funnel, how many drivers we are reaching and where the drop-off is happening. And then finally, the other bucket I have is once the verification and everything is done, what percent of those drivers are able to start the drive and which one never complete the drive. And that bucket is, I will have different strategy to deal with this bucket. In terms of quantifying, I think having that number will help us do the first step of quantifying. And then based on the data, we can create strategies on how to solve the problem. Do we have any additional data in terms of the funnel drop-off and how many drivers actually complete and do not drive?
Okay, yeah, so let's work through this then. Do you want to, let's make this very concrete. You've got the funnel drop-off, you said, right? Do you want to write down the two options of analysis?
Yeah. So funnel drop-off, at what point in the funnel drivers are dropping and what percent are dropping. And the second bucket is once all steps in verification are complete, what percent do not complete their first ride.
Okay, let's say that you go off and do this query, a few queries, and it actually comes back that the verification process ends up being quite fast. So a lot of people get through the background check, the vehicle check, the identity verification, all of that. So it's not an issue there. All of that goes through very well. But there's a bunch of people who actually end up getting their full verification and are ready to drive for Uber, but then they don't end up completing their first ride. So let's say that that's what your SQL queries or your analysis turns back at this point. So then what's the next step?
Okay, so yeah, in that case, I think it makes sense to focus on the point where verification is complete, but they never complete the first ride. And I think completing the verification was big hurdle, and it's interesting. Like once they have completed that lengthy process, why wouldn't they complete the first ride?
Right. So yeah, let's go through a couple of reasons. Can you tell me some reasons as to why you think a driver might not complete their first ride?
Yeah, I mean, two things come to my mind, right? One is that initial hesitation of being a driver. It's like it's a new job, it's a new experience, and maybe some of the users are hesitant to like getting their first step done, right? Like getting that first ride done. The other bucket I'm thinking is like, did they provide the correct information in terms of all the identity check and verification? Maybe they wanted to get the verification, but now like they may not have the car, or they may not have the they may not have all the things they need to complete the ride. The chances of that happening are low, I will say. I'll just focus on that initial hesitation of a new driver to actually sign up. I mean, the other thing is actually maybe like, is there a chance that users don't know, like once they have done all the verification, how to get started on the first ride? Like in the sense that is the step within the app to like be available and get ready to pick up driver, is that step clear, or are they stuck after this and they don't know what to do and how to get started on the first step?
Yeah, let's say that for the interests of this interview that the information is really clear in the app, and it's really clear about exactly what to do on the driver app. once it's installed. So it's none of those issues.
Okay.
Can we focus maybe a little bit more and dig into this idea of hesitancy?
Yeah.
Or hesitancy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, these drivers are like, these are not professional drivers. These could be like they have their regular job and they want to earn additional income. I mean, if we find out, like either by talking to these users or doing some data analysis, if that is the case, maybe in that case we can see how many of these users are in the bucket, and then maybe they need some incentive to have that first ride done. So it could be, maybe it could be in terms of an bonus offer, or it could be in terms of giving them additional amount per ride, or something like if you complete the first 10 rides, you get there's some kind of incentive to get them past to the initial hesitation and hurdle of doing their first Uber ride as a driver.
And as you can imagine, you've got upon a really important point here, which is driver incentives are really important for drivers, even for long-term drivers or for drivers who just started on the platform. So let's take it down that path. There's a lot of different ways that this could go, but let's take it down that path of driver incentives. So now let's say that there is actually, in fact, a driver incentive that already exists, and it's some dollar amount in different markets.
So there is existing driver incentive.
Yeah, so there is already existing driver incentive, and it's some dollar amount X in all the different markets. So it can be some different driver incentive amount in each different market, right? The question now is for you is how would you? But we still see this really big drop off in drivers completing their first ride. So they complete their verification and they're ready to drive, but they don't, for whatever reason, complete that first ride. So where do we go from here? How do we go about solving this problem?
Yeah, so I can think of two things here, right? One is maybe the incentive is not large enough, and then we can run some experiments with the larger incentive amount to see if that's the reason. The other thing I can think of is like there is some other problem other than incentive. There is something, the root cause might be something else. So once we try maybe larger incentive and see its impact, that's one way to go. The other way I can also see is like maybe actually talk to some of those drivers who signed up but did not actually do the ride. So talk to them and see, like, we'll get a lot of information by talking to the drivers to see what is the reason they might not be driving, and then the solution can depend on those either survey questions or directly one-on-one calls with those drivers.
Well, let's say that you've talked with the UXR researchers or the folks who talk directly with the Uber drivers, and the prospective drivers are just saying, yeah, it just doesn't seem like it's worth my time. It doesn't pay enough. So it really is this incentive issue. So how would we go about now? What's the next step? So let's say down this incentive path.
Yeah, that's a very useful insight, right? Now it's essentially it's showing the value of the ride, right? So in that case, maybe like the good next step will be to actually show them how a driver in their region they are making. As a new driver, they may see only the amount per ride, and they might be doing their own calculation. But if you can show some examples or some case studies, a typical driver in your region makes X dollar per month or X dollar per hour, that might show them the real value of driving with Uber. The other option is to actually show that, hey, this is like at different times when there is a high peak demand, how much do they earn? And that way they can decide like if they want to do it full time or only part time during those peak times, where they can maximize their salary per hour.
Okay, so So your solution here is so how would that work in practice? How would you quantify this? How would you know for a fact that this type of thing that you're suggesting is quantifiable and you can increase the amount of drivers who complete their first ride? So how would you go about doing that? What methodology would you use?
I mean, one way to do it is actually, I think I can run an experiment in this case to see.
Yeah, let's take it there. So what kind of experiment would you run here?
Yeah, so in this case, I mean, for the experiment, I think our metric is clear here. We want to see we increase the number of riders who, after verification, do their first ride. Right now, given that this is the metric, what I will do is I will also look at some of the secondary metrics and guardrail metrics when I have the incentive program launched. So secondary metrics could be the feedback that these drivers receive, or the rating that these drivers receive when I give them incentive and they go into the first ride. The time it takes for them to, like, after the incentive, doing their first ride. That will be my secondary metrics. And then the number of rides the new drivers are doing. That way I can see the impact of different kind of promotions that I'm doing. Once we have a good understanding of the metric, the next thing I will do is set up the experiment, right? So in terms of once my metrics are clear, I will look at the parameters of my test, essentially how many, so my null hypothesis will be there is no impact of this incentive on the metric, which is increase the number of drivers. My alternate hypothesis will be it does have an impact and increases the number of who actually do the first ride. And then I can I can identify, I can decide the significance and the power of the test and use that to calculate the sample size I need for me to run the experiment. So I can pick significance as 95%, 80% power, and the minimum detectable effect of 1% for the incentive. Now, based on that, I will know the target, the sample size, and I'll try to run the experiment for 1 to 2 weeks so that I don't have the day of week and those kind of impact on the experiment. There are a few more steps. I can go through those steps, or do you have any questions on these steps of the A/B test?
Yeah. Can I ask you one quick question here? What is statistical power?
So statistical power is essentially the probability of making type 2 errors. So if I have an 80% power, I want to essentially what I'm saying is after based on this, I calculate the number, and I'm 80% confident that I will be able to detect a change in my metric 80% of the time. There is 20% time that I may not be able to, but that's the kind of risk I'm willing to take for this experiment.
Okay. And can you explain to me why you came to the idea of, can you explain what MDE is, this minimum detectable effect, and why you decided it was 1%?
Yes. So the minimum detectable effect is based on whatever number of drivers that are converting today. I want to be able to, like, based on the incentive, I want to see at least 1% increase in the number of drivers who sign up. The thing that I didn't go through deep is, like, this needs to be agreed with the product and the business team. And the idea is, like, what is the difference I can detect? Also, like, I can look into it, like, how much difference makes sense, like the practical sense. Is 1% improvement good enough for us to launch the program? If not, then I might increase my minimum detectable effect. I started with 1% to keep my population size small. If we increase it, then I think I might have to have run a larger sample size.
Okay. And last question for you here. Let's say we run this experiment and we get back the fact that we are seeing there is no statistical significance in the incentive structure added.
Yeah.
Before we actually go into that, can you explain to me? I just realized one last quick question. In fact, can you explain to me what does treatment and control? What is the difference between treatment and control here? Like, what is treatment receiving that control is not?
Yeah, so control is our existing drivers who are not signing up. The control will be of that drivers who have completed their background verification and not done their first ride. I will give them either a different incentive, increased amount, if that's part of my test, or if the part of my test is actually we will show them a case study or give them details about similar driver in that region, how much hourly wages they are making, to see if that changes their behavior.
Okay, cool. And let's say that once we finish running the experiment and 2 weeks later, the results come out not statistically significant, but they do in fact come out such that there is a little bit of an increase in the percentage of drivers who after verification complete their first ride. So there is a small increase. Let's say it's something like 0.5%, so below the minimum detectable effect, and it's not statistically significant. Now what?
So do you have knowledge about what is the p-value? Because that will help me.
Yeah, let's say the p-value is greater than 0.05, so.
Okay. I mean, if the p-value is slightly above 0.05, like 0.07, 0.08, and I see the increase, I think it still makes sense to gradually launch this program to other drivers, because there is a less risk if there's no monetary incentive we are giving. I think the risk is less and the cost is less. The other option could be actually run this test with rerun the test with higher power to be able to detect the difference that the incentive program makes.
Okay. All right. I think that ends the interview. I think we can now do a little bit of feedback.